There are no secrets to success, just things you haven't learned yet. And once you learn them, it's up to you to apply them. I'm Jamaal, aka Boss Eagle, Billboard-charting hip-hop artist and music business coach. Join me as we talk digital marketing, social media, technology, and more, and share interviews with industry professionals to help you unlock the secrets and take control of your music career. Because we are the new music business, and this is the Indie Musician Secrets Podcast. What is up? What is up? What is up, everyone out there? Welcome to the Indie Musician Secrets Podcast. I am your host, Jamaal, aka Boss Eagle, the Firebird. Hello from snowy Colorado. I hope you all are doing well out there and staying safe and staying warm, staying healthy, and enjoying either creating, writing, performing, doing something with your music, even if it's working on stuff on the back end or behind the scenes. Hopefully, you're still able to be working on your music. If you listen to the last episode, I kind of talked about the what the Indie Musician Secrets podcast is. So if you haven't been able to check out that episode, you can go check that out so you can learn what this podcast is all about. And in this episode, I wanted to share with you a little bit more about me. Who is this guy that you see on these YouTube videos, whose email list you're probably on, and all these other things? You know, who is this guy, Jamaal, aka Boss Eagle, that is hosting this podcast? And so if you want to learn a little bit more about me, strap in, settle in, and I'm going to share a little bit more about me, and hopefully, share some things that'll inspire you or encourage you in your music journey as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about me. I am a music artist. So a lot of times you all will hear me say things like that, I'm an artist just like you. You hear it in the intro as well. I'm an artist just like you. So I'm in the trenches. I'm going through a lot of these same things you all are. I don't have a label. I'm not on a label. I don't have a manager, anything like that. So I'm the kind of the true indie artist as well. And I always wanted to be a performer. And I'm originally from south of Chicago, from a little place called Harvey, Illinois, which geographically sits just right across the border, just a little bit over the border from Gary, Indiana. So if you're familiar with Gary, Indiana, that's where Michael Jackson and the Jacksons are from. So I like to think, there's a little bit of talent coming from out of that region there. But yeah, I've always wanted to be a performer. I've thought about this here in my adult life, that a lot of times, when we're kids, people will say, oh, I want to be this, or we think we want to be that. And like, I think for myself, I can truly say that I think as I look back, I've always wanted to be a performer. Obviously, I grew up on Michael Jackson and, New Edition and LL Cool J and all that stuff. And so it was just always something that really appeared to me, and I started writing at a young age, and I did what a lot of hip hop artists do when we're kids. Like, we just like take somebody else's song and we just write lyrics over it, you know what I mean, and kind of within the same kind of rhythm and cadence and all that stuff. But I definitely loved hip hop, growing up, and grew up on Snoop and Naughty by Nature. And if you know anything about me, you know that Notorious Big is my favorite artist. Probably a lot of hip hop artists I shouldn't have been listening to as a youngster, but definitely grew up on that stuff. And then fast forward a little bit to when I was a young teenager. I actually I wrote a letter to Puff Daddy because I was a big fan of Puffy and Biggie and Mace and all those guys at Bad Boy Records. And I actually never sent it. I literally wrote a letter and never sent it. And that's an interesting concept, and it'll come back up here in a little bit when I share another little story with you all. But just keep that in mind, that I wrote a letter and never sent it. And I also actually I remember one time, I don't know how, but I found the phone number to So So Def Records, which is Jermaine Dupri, one of the best producers of all time in the hip hop genre. He's the one that founded Crisscross, and the ones that jump, that group. And someone answered the phone there, and I think if I remember correctly, I think I actually hung up. I was like, I wasn't really expecting somebody to answer the phone at their offices or whatever. So I think I just hung up, and that was about it. And then later on in high school, I actually kind of started really getting into more pop music. And I remember a buddy of mine. He told me we're hanging out at his house, and he goes, "Hey man," he's like, "Have you heard of that this one girl?" He's like, "She got this really cool song." He's like, "It's not like the stuff we listen to." He's like, "But it's cool and like she's cute and stuff." And that girl happened to be Britney Spears, and that song was "Baby One More Time." And so that pretty much, like for a lot of teenage boys, like, got us into pop music. I was just gonna leave it at that. But yeah, and so I really started getting into a lot of pop music. Became a huge NSYNC fan. That's something that you all will learn about me as well. And that's kind of important to know because that was part of the reason why after I graduated high school, so I moved back to South Chicago um, uh, right before my senior year. Mostly grew up here in Colorado, and I moved back and ended up meeting another guy through a connection, one of the coaches on my speech team, and a guy from my high school was holding auditions to put together a singing group that he wanted to manage. And then through that, we realized we had some similar interests in music and stuff, and we were both graduating at the same time, and decided, hey, let's move to Orlando and start our own singing group. And I had a buddy back here in Colorado that was about a year behind me in high school, and so our goal was like, hey, we're gonna go out, us two, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna find two more guys and start to rehearse and everything. And by the time my buddy would graduate, he'd come join us down there. We'd have a 5-part harmony. So um, I moved to Orlando. Uh, just me. I was the only one that ended up going, and I absolutely loved my time there. It wasn't easy, and I didn't know a single person. I literally, I mean, I put a lot of work into it before I left in terms of, finding a place to live and finding out how to use public transportation. And I was working at a telecommunications company at the time, and I knew I could transfer my job after 90 days. And so I think literally like it was like a Tuesday. It was on my 3 months. I already had my bags packed and jumped on a Greyhound bus and kind of went back through Chicago to see my grandmother, my great grandmother, and then was on my way to Orlando and got there by that Friday night. And it was a very uh, it was an awesome time. There was definitely some tough times too, but I learned a lot, and it was definitely a lot of growth there. I feel like in terms of my faith, I felt like there was some shoe leather added to my faith, and just different things that I learned um, about God and myself. And but it was an awesome time living down there, and got to have some amazing experiences. Some of them you may or may not know, getting to kind of hang out with Mandy Moore a little bit. Mandy Moore, who is on the hit show This Is Us, and she's the voice of Rapunzel on the series Tangled and all that. And so got to kick it with her a little bit after her show. If she ever hears this episode, she'll probably be like, "Who is this dude?" Like, she probably would never remember. But anyway, so I moved to Orlando, and like I said, had some great opportunities. And then I ended up moving back here to Colorado, and was just working and stuff. And this was right after 9/11, so things are really kind of crazy, and there weren't a lot of jobs and stuff. But I was very fortunate to finally end up working at a printing company. And during that time, I had applied for school, and then ended up attending Colorado State University, where I majored in political science with a minor in Spanish. And still, even within that, I feel like there were still those kind of under rumblings of this performer, this entertainer. I kind of knew it was there, and that's why. So my sophomore year of college is actually when I kind of first had the vision of having this multifaceted entertainment company, which I then founded in March of 2005, which was my junior year. And that company became 8199 Entertainment, which is where my little indie imprint record label is, and Business Minded Musicians falls under that as well. So like, a lot of things like, Def Jam recordings, with Russell Simmons, and those, that was founded in a dorm room in NYU. I felt like I kind of had that, like, hey, I founded my company in a dorm room too. So it was kind of cool. And fast forward a little bit, I started. Again, I'd always loved writing and just all kinds of things, poetry and stories and stuff, and definitely lyrics. And at this time, I was working at the university. I worked in banking for a while, and then I was working at the university. And around 2014 is when I ended up writing a verse over a song by an artist by the name of Young Summer, featuring Trent Dabbs. And the song is called Letter Never Sent. So there's that reference back to that letter that I never sent to Puff Daddy, right? And I ended up, I heard this song on Pandora actually, and I was like, man, this song is dope. And it's kind of like a ballad type song, but I ended up ended up writing a verse over it, over the instrumental part. And that next March, so March of 2015, I actually went in and I recorded. I have a friend who has a studio, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to record this," and I just put it on SoundCloud and stuff. Like that was it. I didn't really know about anything else. I wasn't really in anything else. I wasn't an artist at that time. And so, like I said, I put it on SoundCloud, and it's not there anymore, I don't think, but it got like thousands of streams. But like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing or anything like that. But that was kind of the process for me. I just started writing verses over songs that I liked. Whether it was, there was "Lean On" by Major Lazer with Mo and DJ Snake, and there's an Alicia Keys song. DJ Khaled's "All I Do Is Win." So I would find these songs, and I'm like, man, like I just write verses over them, and that kind of really got me back into that, and really loving that writing. And it was kind of bringing some of those old things up, just those aspirations of being that performer, that entertainer, that I wanted to be ever since I was a kid, and that I moved to Orlando to be. Um, and so in August of 2016, I actually quit my job at the university. And that kind of thing doesn't really happen like that way usually. Like people are usually like, oh, I'm doing my music thing, and then like I get married and I have a family, and then I quit that and I go do the normal thing. And I kind of did that backwards. So I'm very thankful for my supportive wife, and at the time we had 3 kids. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna leave this job. And it wasn't like that, like overnight kind of thing, but there's a lot more to that story. But I ended up actually resigning in 2016, and then about 3.5 months later, um, I got a blood clot in my right lung. And um, it's scary, man. Like it was scary. It was a scary time being in the hospital, just kind of not even knowing like all of what that meant. And part of my right lung, they told me, actually had died. The blood clot was kind of in one of the lower parts of the, like um, the way your lung looks is kind of like a tree with like branches that like branch off as it gets further and further away from the heart. And so it was, I think, kind of one of the lower branch part areas. And it was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. It was a super just kind of dark time. During the time we were actually in the hospital, I've shared this too. My wife and I actually suffered a miscarriage as well. We lost our fourth baby um, while I was in the hospital. And I remember that night. It was the first night that I was alone in the hospital, because my wife had been there, but then she had gone home to so that she could be with our other children. And that was the kind of that. I remember that Saturday. I went into the hospital on a Thursday. I remember that Saturday being the first night that I was there alone, and just laying there in that cold, dark hospital room and everything. And it was just super lonely. And and then just after that, just trying to recover from that and everything, and not really being able to feel like I could console my wife properly, and grieve properly and everything, because I was still recovering and everything. So it was just kind of a really interesting time period. And then that next January, January of 2017 now, is actually when I went into the studio and I recorded my first song. And that song is entitled Firebird. And it was really kind of like like a way of kind of coming out of that, I guess. It was just from that whole kind of season, and then even after I got out of the hospital, like we all were kind of like had different sicknesses and illnesses and stuff, and but going into the studio and recording that and feeling like, okay, like I'm better, and yeah, I've got breath in my lungs, kind of thing, and it was just a really cool feeling, to record that. I remember recording that first song, and as artists, and producers as well, you all know what I'm talking about when I say, you go into Studio B. I remember, so Studio B, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's usually like when you go sit in the car, you listen to you listen to your music like in the speakers, because you want to hear what it sounds like in a car. And my old car just does not have like the best speakers in the world. So I ended up driving to I ended up going to a car dealership, and I talked to one of the sales guys. I was like, "So I'm a musician, and I was like, I want to hear what my song sounds like on like some good speakers. My car's old and has like crappy speakers." And so this like used, it was no, it was actually like a new car lot thing too. And so he's like, "Yeah," he goes, "Let me grab some keys." And so the car salesman goes and sits out, and he's like listening to my song with me, and I'm like dissecting it and everything. And so it was really cool, with that. And so then I put the song on iTunes, because that's when iTunes was a thing back then, and it was awesome because like right off the bat I had a million downloads. It was I'm just kidding, guys. I'm so just kidding. I had two. I literally had 2 downloads, but I remember feeling so happy, and here's the thing, the 2 downloads I had, one of them was my wife anyway, and one of them was a buddy of mine, but honestly, like, I didn't care at all. I remember that spring, I was out in LA at the ASCAP Expo. If you don't know what ASCAP is, that's one of the PROs, the performance rights organizations here in the US, and I went out to their convention, the conference that year, and I remember sitting there eating lunch on one of the lunch breaks, sitting there overlooking Hollywood and Highland in LA, and just being like, I'm so happy. Like I not only have 2 downloads, and that's not a lot to like celebrate over or whatever, but I was just like, this is what I want to do. Like I was just so pumped, so jazzed about it. And um originally I had thought that, from Firebird, I may do 2 or 3 more songs and maybe kind of release an EP. And then just over time, like over throughout the course of 2017, it just expanded, to what actually would end up becoming a full length LP. And that August, I went to another music conference. I went to the CD Baby conference in Nashville, and CD Baby is, as some of you know, it's one of the big digital distributors for music. Um, and I remember going to that conference and just kind of soaking in so much. It was my first trip to Nashville. I absolutely love Nashville. Shout out to all of you who live in Nashville. You're so lucky. I'm just kidding. um, but I remember one session in particular that I went to. It was called How I Did It, and they interviewed 2 different artists. And I'll never forget, the artist. His name is Tyke T. Shout out to Tyke T. He's a hip hop artist, from Memphis, and he talked about making the Billboard charts. And I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" I was like, "I thought that was only for big name artists on labels and all this stuff." And so I'm like soaking up everything. And then I like, as soon as they were done, they asked if people had questions. I like jumped up. I was the first one up, jumped on the mic, and he's like, he gave me a t-shirt. He's like, "Whoa." He's like, like, that's a kind of a point to think about, always be first kind of thing. And so then like I'm asking questions, and I'm like just grilling his manager who's there, like just chatting her ear off, just trying to figure out like, okay, how in the world did you do this and everything. And shout out again to Tyke T for, actually, when I got back home, like he actually got on the phone with me, which was really, really, really cool. And he kind of walked me through his process and why he did this and how he did that kind of thing. And I was like, bet. I want to try to do this. Like, I want to try to make Billboard charts. Yes, this is my first album. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was like, at that point, going to like a couple open mics. I did like one kind of radio station visit, actually my alma mater, the campus radio, and I did kind of an interview and a small performance there. But it was over the summer. It was that July, and like nobody's really on campus at that time. But it was still awesome, and I was still excited to have that opportunity. And but that was my goal. Like I was like, I want to try to make the Billboard charts. And part of that honestly was because I I did want that resume piece, like to say, man, this is something cool that we were able to accomplish. But one of the other reasons I wanted to do it is because I wanted to show other artists what was possible, even if they didn't have the same goals, even if they didn't want to necessarily do the same thing, just to show indie artists what's possible. So I think even all the way back then, I wasn't even doing business minded musicians, but I think even back then, I had this like desire to kind of show other independent artists, what's possible. And so, fast forward a little bit now from August to November of 2017, I actually released my debut album. I did a pre sale starting November 3rd. I did a pre sale for about 2 weeks. And then I had an album release party, album release event and listening party at my alma mater at Colorado State University. We rented out the big student center theater, the theater inside the student union, and it was amazing. It was like the worst night weather wise. It was like super like cold wind. It's like the Friday before Thanksgiving, but we had like 150 people come out. Like it was crazy. Like I had people coming from like over an hour away that like braved the elements, and like people that I like went to middle school and high school with that were just like super excited about what I was doing. And I was making videos and doing all kinds of stuff. Shout out to my friends David Priest and Brenda Runback of Shadow Play Films. They helped me make these crazy videos where it was like two of me, like me interviewing myself, like me as Jamaal interviewing me as Boss Eagle, and like talking to myself and stuff. Like they were so fun and just so crazy and got tons of views and stuff. And then I did the album release, and we sold some CDs and merch and stuff there, and it was a great time, and it took so much out of me. Like I think just everything, all my energy and everything had gone into that so much. And then that subsequent sales week for Billboard, which is the week after your album drops, and I was, like, so burned out. Like, I hadn't checked emails, I hadn't done much because it was just like, I think my brain was just like, "Get to the end of your sales week," and then it was just you just kinda crash kinda thing. And so since I wasn't really, responding, checking a whole lot of emails because I was so just caught up in, the promotion of this album, um, I was coming back later and going through emails after the fact, and I saw an email from a rep from Billboard, from the Billboard charts from um, out in I think he was in New York, and he had asked me in an email like, "Hey, can we get your information? Da 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 da, because you may end up charting." And I was like, "Oh, man." And so this was like, now I'm responding to this later. So I just responded back and I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you still need this information." I was like, but here it is. And I was like, also, I was like, "Do you know if by chance if I charted or not?" Send him an email. He gets back to me. He's like, "Thanks for the information. Actually, yeah, we did still need it." He goes, "And yes, you did." He's like, "You debuted number 5 on the Billboard Heat Seekers chart for your region." And I was like, "What?" Like, I had no mixtapes, I had no following, um, I had no social media follow I mean, I probably had some accounts, but, like, I wasn't doing anything. I was literally a brand new artist, that just, I just knew I wanted to make music, and I knew I wanted to try to do something with it, but to then find out that, like, and he sent me a screenshot, and I think if I probably have that posted in different places, but I have the screenshot of like my album debuting like number 5, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And it was cool. It was kind of um, it's kind of like you kind of that you worked hard for something, and of course it would have been awesome to make the main charts or to make the hip hop charts or whatever. But I'm like, hey, the Heat Seekers chart for the region, like I will take it all day long. You know what I mean? It was like kind of like, yes, this was some kind of reward for the hard work that we'd put in. And that's with no manager, no label, no PR, no nothing. I didn't know how to run ads back then. It was literally just my wife and I beating the pavement and telling people about it and getting in trouble on Facebook and you know what I mean? And making these videos and doing we would do like Facebook lives, and like I remember at least one of them I did with my wife on the Facebook Live, and like having her talk about stuff too. So there's like all these things that we were doing, and it paid off. So it was super cool. And one of the things I wanted to share too with you all is, I released my first album the day before my birthday in November of that year, and y'all, that was the I was 35 at the time. And I know that a lot of times, particularly in music, I've even seen like artists and stuff like be so hesitant about sharing their age. I honestly don't care. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if people will look at that and be like, "Man, dude, you're old, bro." Like, I don't know, but what I do know is that there's probably a bunch of you out there who are wondering that same thing. Like, can I still do this? Like, because there's Ari Herstand. If you know who Ari Herstand is, an awesome guy in the music industry. He always talks about old Uncle Joe. Like your old Uncle Joe will tell you, "Oh, if you haven't made it by the time you're 21 or 25, give it up. You're not gonna make it." And he's like, "Stop listening to your old Uncle Joe. He doesn't know what he's talking about." And that's why I have really adopted the whole mentality of the new music business. And that's what we're in now. We're in the new music business. We don't have to operate with the mindset of the old, music industry record label system and all that stuff anymore, because we all are going to have our own unique niches and our own unique audiences. And there are going to be people who are my age who grew up on hip hop, who grew up on rap. But as you get older and you have kids and stuff, you're like, you don't always maybe necessarily want them to hear certain things. And so then like somebody comes out and it has good music and it's clean and you can really vibe to it. And so I think it gives a lot of people that, and then young folks too, and everything. And so it's really cool to be able to have the opportunity to do what I do. So I just want to. That's just a little side note for those of you out there who may be thinking like, oh, I can't do this or whatever. Put those thoughts aside, man, and go for it, because you're only gonna regret it if you don't. Even if that one person comes up and is like, oh, you're old, like who cares? You know what I mean? You're not gonna regret doing it because one person thought you were too old. You're gonna regret not doing it because you thought you were too old. So that's just a little side note there. So like I said, we debuted on the Billboard charts, and then after that, I honestly, y'all, like honestly, I didn't really know what to do after that, because it was like, okay, everything went into that year from January to November of finishing the album, writing it, recording it, the mixing, mastering, the engineering, all that stuff, the promotion, the Billboard charting, all that. And then once I found out that I debuted on the charts, I was like, I honestly don't know what to do now. Like, I really did not know what the next step was. So, what I did was, I'm also an actor, some of you know that, and I have an agent here in Denver, and so I had to go down to my agent's office for something to handle some business. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the radio station. Like that, I don't know what else to do. So I'm gonna go to the radio station. So I went to the biggest radio station, the biggest public radio station here in Colorado, which is Colorado Public Radio. They've now rebranded to Indy 102.3, but are under the umbrella of kind of that public radio in their NPR station. And I went in, and this was around Christmas time, and like no, like hardly anyone was there. And I ended up talking to a young lady at the front desk, and I am so sorry I don't remember her name. But I took my CD and I was like, "Hey, I don't know, can you guys play my music?" I don't even remember what I said, but she's like, "Yeah, yeah, we curate local music and stuff." And she's like, we'll, I'll take it, and I'll give it to the people who kind of, who curate and listen to the local music. She's like, a lot of people are out right now because it's Christmas time, and she's like, but we'll have someone get back to you. So I was like, all right, cool. So then, a little bit of time went by, maybe a week or so. I can't even honestly remember. It wasn't very long, but I was like, hey, I hadn't heard from anyone. So what I decided to do was, I was like, well, I want to see who's on now. Like, I want to see who's on the radio right now. So I jumped on their website, and you can see which programmer is on at the time, like whose segment it is. So I found out who it was, and I sent her a tweet, and I was like, hey, this is Boss Eagle. I was like, I dropped off my CD, da 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 da. I was just wondering if you guys had a chance to listen to it. And so she messaged me back. She's like, yeah, we got it and everything. She's like, we're, we got to have the person who kind of listens to the local music, curates the local artists. We'll listen to that and kind of get back to you. And so I was like, all right, cool. So this was, going into the new year. So January of 2018, I'm sitting with a buddy of mine who's an amazing feature filmmaker, and we're sitting in his office in his house. And so I get a text from a friend of mine who is an artist in the area, and she says, you're on the radio. And I was like, oh, cool, cool, cool. And she just, let me know. So we get back to work and everything. She texts me again a little bit later. She goes, "You're on again." She goes, "You're on heavy rotation." And I'm like, "What?" So I tell my buddy, he jumps on his computer, he jumps on the radio station website, and uh, it was the end of my song Firebird. Firebird was ending, and the programmer, the DJ at the time, I'll never forget the words. She said, "Not just any eagle, that's Boss Eagle with Firebird." And I was like, "What? Like this is so crazy!" It was like the first time I'd ever even heard like a snippet of my music on the radio. Like it was insane. And so, since then, I've had like hundreds of spins on the radio, and gotten to do a lot of really cool things, from having a featured album through the radio station at one of the famed record stores here in Denver. I've played tons of shows, gotten to share the stage with some amazing artists. I've played festivals. I've had magazine features, and I've had three of my songs appear in two feature films, and just a lot of really cool things. And I don't say that to brag. I don't say that to boast or be arrogant. Um, Truly, I say that to inspire you. That my hope would be that someone out there is listening, and you're thinking like, man, I can't do this. I can't, you know, I can't cut through the noise, or no one's gonna like my music, or I'm too old, or I have a family. I can't, I got to give up this dream or whatever. And I always say that you have to operate um, within your own life context. Your life context isn't my life context. My life context isn't yours. But you'll have to look at what's true about your life. Do you have a full-time job, and do you have this, what responsibilities, all that stuff. But there are ways to still pursue your dream and pursue that thing that's calling you. And like I said, I'm very fortunate to have a wife who supports and encourages my artistry. And it's not always easy, because we're artists, right? So sometimes it can be feast or famine, and sometimes there can be struggles with different things or whatever. And there's always that battle of hey, I got to pay for this, but I really want to make a song, or I got to go do this, but I really want to be writing right now. But it is possible, and that's what I want to encourage you all with, is that it is possible for you to continue to pursue your dream to be a music artist, or a producer, a DJ, a manager, whatever that is. Just set a course and start finding people who are doing it. I'll say this, all day. I'm so thankful that I went to those conferences that I went to, and have met people like Ari Herstand and Tyke T and Rick Barker, and a lot of these folks that you probably know their names. And so sometimes that may be the first step, is just saying, hey, where are the people? Like where are my people? Where are the people like me? And then buy yourself a ticket to a conference, or raise some support for it, and try to get out to some of these things and meet some people. And like I said, I mean, I just want to encourage you all that you can do this too. Nothing I've done is like overtly, it's not like overly rare or exceptional. Like, people are doing these kinds of things, all the time. It's just that a lot of times we don't see some of the work that's being put in until somebody's already famous, or they've already made it, and then like we go back and maybe learn about their journey. And that's why I kind of want to share that with you, and not to pretend like I'm somewhere that I'm not. I've shared with you guys before. I'm in the trenches with you. I kind of feel like my journey right now is one of, hey, I'm going through these things, and maybe I'm a couple steps ahead of you, or I've learned some things that I want to share and teach. But I'm implementing these things too. I've only in the past few years, started learning how to run Facebook ads, and learning about sales funnels and things. And these things are really things that I feel like have been super beneficial for me, and they're things that I'm interested in. And that's why at Business Minded Musicians, which is my brand, the things that I focus on most are digital marketing, technology, social media, miscellaneous music business, and encouragement, inspiration, because we need that too. So I just want to encourage you to take action, and even when you don't know what to do what you know to do. Like I said, for me, I didn't know what to do after my album. I was like, I don't know what's next. We made the charts. I was great, but I didn't want it to just leave it there. So I walked into the radio station. They could have turned me away. They could have said, we don't do that. I would have never known. And honestly, a lot of the opportunities I've gotten have come from that one visit to the radio station. I kid you not. Like, I've been nominated twice for a prestigious music award here in Colorado. It's the Westward Music Awards. I've been nominated twice for Best Rap Solo. The first time I was nominated, I had no clue. A buddy of mine, who's another hip hop artist, he told me at an event one time, he's like, "Hey man, congratulations." I was like, "For what?" He's like, "You got nominated for Best Rap Solo for the Westward Music Awards." I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And how I found out how that happened was I went into the radio station, back to that same radio station, to do an interview and to perform in their performance studio, which is an awesome opportunity. And I asked the programmer, I said, "Hey, do you know anything about that?" And she said, "Yeah, I nominated you." you know, uh, Being a part of the Denver Music Advisory Panel, which is a board that seeks to help music related communities grow. I've been fortunate to be a part of that since 2018, and the way that I became a part of that is um, the director and they were driving around. They heard my song "Baby" on the radio. They called the radio station, was like, "Who is that?" And they're like, "Oh, that's Jamaal." They're like, "We love him. He does all this other stuff too." So then they end up like stalking me on Facebook and YouTube and all that. And they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, we would like you to be a part of this." So that's what I'm saying. It's like, just even when you don't know what to do, just do what you know to do. Just make videos, email people, go to the radio station, post stuff, do whatever you can to get your music out there, because I do believe that your audience is out there and they're waiting for you, and it's up to you to deliver your music to them. So I hope this episode of this podcast was helpful for you. Sorry this one went a little bit long. I'll try not to have the episodes be this long, with exception to maybe some of the interview style podcasts, some of the interview episodes. But I did just want to share a little bit about me, and like I said, hopefully some part maybe of my journey in this last 40 minutes or so has been inspirational to you, and that you can take something out of it and apply it to what you're doing. And if you need more, or if you want more, I do have tons of resources on the website. So if you go to businessmindedmusicians.com, that's businessmindedmusicians.com. I have a whole resources page there. You can access some of my free documents as well, some of my free resources, the Artist Resource Guide, Volume 2, the Spotify Audit for Artists Guide. Those are completely free for you. You can get those there as well. You can check us out on YouTube. Just go to Business Minded Musicians on YouTube. I'll be posting videos there. Obviously, there's the podcast here. And I hope to continue to share my journey. Hopefully, as you learn more about me and I learn more about you, I can learn more about how I can help you grow in your music career and in your journey as well. So keep rocking, keep writing, keep recording, keep getting out there, keep making music, and keep having the mindset that we are the new music business, because that's what we are, and you can do this. So, all right, I'll talk to you all on the next episode. God bless. Peace. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow the Indie Musician Secrets podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, and make sure to leave us a rating and review. Also, share this episode with other indie musicians you think it would be beneficial for. And for more helpful resources to help you grow your music business, visit us at businessmindedmusicians.com. I hope this episode has served you. We'll talk to you on the next episode.